Hello and welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel. Hope everyone is doing well. Today I have 4 Reddit stories for you guys. All credit goes to the original posters of these stories, and I will link them in the description. Something screamed my name. Alright, so this happened a couple weeks ago. I've told some of my friends, and every time I say it out loud, it just makes less and less sense to me. While it's not particularly horrifying, it was certainly something else. Tell me what you think of this. To start, my name's Adam. A good buddy of mine, Bailey, invited me to go to this Christian camp. Now, I'm not very religious, but I like camping, and I like him and his family, so I said I'd go. It was a beautiful place, but way different than I was expecting. Usually when you camp, you kind of keep to yourselves and set up a tent on the ground somewhere. However, here, it was like a whole community of people with trailers, tents, cabins, etc. There was daily activities and events. Everyone knew each other. It was like a family reunion where I didn't know anyone. Very different from how I normally camp, but I will say I had a great time and I felt very welcomed. I met lots of people, made a few pals, and learned a little more about Christianity, though it didn't sway my stance. Anyway, 2 of the people I met were named Emily and Mike. They were a few years older, but that really doesn't matter. Great people who love to party, and that was just dandy with me. I like to have some fun myself. I want to say it was like day 4 of my stay there, and it was around midnight. Everyone was going to bed, but the 4 of us stayed around the fire and had a few drinks. For those wondering, yes, drinking was definitely against the camp rules, but whatever. We were having fun. Mike then asked us if we wanted to go for a bit of a walk. Feeling good and not tired yet, we all said sure, and off we went. Mike and I were both barefoot because why not? It's nice to feel the earth under your feet, and it didn't slow us down much, so we rolled with it for the stroll. We weren't just going to take a walk around the grounds though. We wanted to go across the road and take the trail for a little hike. So we did just that. Bailey and Emily led the way with the lantern, and Mike and I followed right behind. Drinks in hand, after a couple of stops to chat and take a quick rest, we continued on our journey. We were probably about 2 kilometers away from the camp when Mike and I suddenly realized Bailey and Emily had marched right on ahead, leaving the 2 of us behind. It didn't seem to make much sense though, because they were right in front of us the whole time. It's like they triple-timed their walking. We didn't think anything of it. We also weren't too worried because Mike had basically grown up at this place. He's been going there for the last 30 years or so and knows the trails very well. We had some moonlight, and it's not like our eyes didn't work. So we just decided to take our time, chill out, and enjoy the beauty of the night. However, if anything did happen, my phone was dead and Mike didn't have his on him, so in hindsight, that was probably a mistake. We stopped for a few minutes so Mike could have a smoke, and we chatted about some deeper topics, or at least it felt deep. Mike and I were really bonding, and it seemed like we could have kept our conversation going for hours. But of nowhere, we heard the sort of screaming sound probably around 50 meters away. Now, we're in the woods of Canada. Lots of things make strange noises. We were trying to figure out what it could be. Mike said cougar, I said fox. It screamed again, and we still couldn't quite determine which one of the 2. If either, it could be. So we hushed and waited for it to do it again. It took a couple minutes, so naturally we got to talking again. But when it did scream, it wasn't quite the same as the first 2. Something sounded a little off about it. The distance seemed to stay the same, so our concern didn't necessarily grow, but our curiosity most certainly did. Then we really stayed quiet, so we didn't miss it or mishear it with our talking. It took less than a minute this time, and it was clear as day. In a weird cougar fox-like scream, Adam! Mike and I just stood still for a second and looked at each other. Mike said to me, did it just say your name? I stayed quiet as I looked on into the woods. I say with certainty it wasn't a human, so I knew it wasn't Bailey or Emily looking for us or anything. Plus, it was in the opposite direction of where we had to go and where they went. As I'm trying to process what I heard and making an attempt at rationalizing it in my head, my thoughts are interrupted by another scream, just as clear as was before. Adam! I turned to Mike and said, "Yep, that's definitely my name. The fuck is that?" Mike had a little chuckle and said he didn't know. As I started to follow up with my worries, he hushed me and said to wait. He wanted to hear it again. I suppose I did too, but by this point I just wanted to start heading back. I was getting increasingly uncomfortable. After the third time hearing this thing scream my name, I said to Mike, "Okay, let's get out of here. I'm not sure I want to meet whatever that is." He complies, starts talking about how he isn't worried because God is right there with him and stuff, which is fine, but it brought me a little comfort. We started making our way down the trail. We took a shortcut. Because we took the trail, it would have been roughly another 2 kilometers back. So we barefoot bushwhacked until we ended up in the trail again. We reached the hill where the trail began, and I heard Bailey make a sort of caw-caw sound. Mike and I returned with our own caw-caw and began making our way down the hill. Had a laugh about how, instead of calling our names, he's making a crow noise at the base of the trail. When we got to the bottom, Bailey had informed us that we'd been missing for about an hour and a half, and that him and Emily, along with Mike's wife, were getting pretty worried. Mike and I were blown away. We could have swore it was no more than a half hour or so. Maybe the timing thing was just the drinks, but I swear on everything I care about that something was screaming my name. Something Mike or I couldn't identify. We went back up the following night, just to the top of the hill, but we got nothing. No screams. Hardly any noise at all, really, which in itself is uncomfortable for a forest. It was just an unnerving experience, and I'd be cool if it never happened again. Any input on what we may have heard that night would be appreciated. Thanks for reading. I put a curse on you. So, quick context. I came from a very superstitious culture. Beliefs in black magic and curses and evil eye and all that. I've heard so many stories, but this is the first time I've personally encountered anything remotely creepy or off. I was staying at my aunt's house. It was the last leg of a month-long escapade, and I was looking forward to staying with family and not bouncing from hotel room to hotel room. I was sharing a room with my sisters, and all night I felt like someone was in the room walking around. I'm not a great sleeper in general, so I thought it was me. The next day everyone went out and I decided to stay home and get some rest. I kept feeling like someone was watching me, and the air just felt really heavy and negative. Again, I chalked it up to the lack of sleep and travel. As the week went on, I couldn't be in the room alone. I was so scared of being in that room by myself, day or night. Suffice to say, I didn't get much rest. When we left, I asked my sisters, and they said they felt creeped out too. My sister randomly called my aunt one day and mentioned it. Our aunt told us that someone had cast black magic on the family, so much so that my nephew would wake up screaming in the middle of the night like clockwork. We were on the first floor and he was on the second. Big house, would not hear it. They eventually got the house cleansed and blessed, and my nephew is okay now, but I still absolutely refuse to go back. Those were some evil vibes, like pure hatred. We never found out who did it. My best friend dreamed about his actual death. My best friend and I would always talk about crazy dreams we had. Never thought much of it until he told me about one where he got hit by a car and died. We were about 15 to 16 when he told me about the dream. We were into conspiracies, stuff like aliens, paranormal, lucid dreaming, so we talk about stuff like that a lot. And he died right before he would have turned 20. He said he was riding a skateboard wearing all black when the car hit him and could see everyone at his funeral. He even said his crush was at his funeral and laughed about it. He just kept going on about how it was so real, and it really shook me up until eventually I forgot about it. Then a few years later, after I'd long forgot about the dream he told me about, it happened for real. His crush was at his funeral. He did get hit by a car and die. He was wearing all black like in the dream, his work clothes, and he was riding a skateboard. It was all true. I still don't know what to make of it all. Every single detail I remember from his dream came true. and I'm sure there's parts of it he told me that I don't remember. I felt crazy. I didn't tell anyone about. I just don't know why or how he saw it happen in his dream. And think, what if he never told me about it? It just left me with so many questions, but I guess now I have proof, at least to myself, that our souls go on after we die. I just wish I knew why he experienced that dream and told me about it. Like there had to be some kind of reason. I just think about how I wouldn't believe this story if I hadn't experienced it for myself. Has anyone ever experienced anything similar? TV was moved and on a different channel. This happened when I was 16, a couple years ago. Around dinner time, I drove up to my grandparents' house and invited myself in to watch some TV on their couch to wait for them to get home. It's been a few hours and now it's 9 p.m. I was on Netflix watching Lilo and Stitch and paused it mid-movie to get up and grab a Coke from the garage. I was only gone 35 seconds. Since the garage is right next to the living room, I re-enter the house and the mounted TV is pulled out all the way, turned towards the cemetery in the backyard. Yeah, there's a public cemetery in their backyard. On a prayer channel and the volume is max. I flipped my shit and ran back to the garage and started calling my mom. She calmed me down and I went back inside and fixed everything back to how it was. I checked the house to see if I was alone, and I indeed was. I still don't know what happened that day. Thank you for listening. If you like this type of content, please consider subscribing and liking my channel, and I will see you on the next one.